Hi, everybody. What a year, huh? I don't know about you all, but this year has helped me realize that life isn't as predictable as I used to believe it was. In America, hundreds of thousands of people have died, and over 50 million people are struggling to keep up on essential household expenses, such as rent, electricity, and food. Moreover, systems of education have been shaken to their very core. For example, UVU has moved most classes online. The classes which UVU has not moved online have been drastically altered. Face masks, social distancing, and limited gatherings are now part of our college experience. Now, I know you're probably thinking, wait, am I attending a talk addressing public health and safety? Let me get to the point. Currently, according to utah.gov, no more than 10 people are allowed to gather together in one room. For a moment, I'd like for you to imagine that you are a student attending a class of that size. You and 9 other students. Please close your eyes and truly try to picture what a group of 10 students looks like. Who are those students next to you? At least 1 out of those 9 classmates, 1 out of 10 Wolverines are experiencing basic needs insecurity. Maybe you yourself are one of those students. I have been. I have multiple friends who have been as well. Often when I share these statistics with others and inform them that UVU has resources to address these issues, a lot of them are surprised. They say they had no idea this was going on. Why does this statistic shock us? I worry that basic needs insecurity has become a stigmatized phrase. We are surprised to hear that our fellow Wolverines are experiencing basic needs insecurity because our internal definition of that phrase is flawed. So, let us take a moment to clarify the meaning of basic needs insecurity, the phrase itself. While housing insecurity is a key issue that UVU is trying to resolve, you do not need to be homeless to be basic needs insecure. Instead, basic needs insecurity can exist in the seemingly small moments that many college students face. For example, I hear students say this all the time. I'm waiting for my scholarship money to afford textbooks. I'm waiting for my next paycheck to buy groceries. Maybe you need to prioritize rent or gas before you can buy new clothes. Have you ever experienced these things? Maybe you're studying late at the library and you can't afford to eat at a campus restaurant, but you're hungry. You didn't pack a lunch or a dinner. Are you unable to afford a new laptop or Wi-Fi? If so, you are not alone. Again, these are situations that many of us face. These very experiences, these seemingly small moments, this is what it means to experience basic needs insecurity. Food, housing, school materials. These are basic needs. Unfortunately, it is all too common for students who are experiencing these moments to refrain from asking for help. UVU data indicates that upon answering yes, when asked if they were experiencing basic needs insecurity and food insecurity, 83% of students also said that they have not considered using the UVU food pantry. 83% of hungry students might not consider themselves hungry enough to use the food pantry. Again, I myself have been one of these students. When I reflect back on the times in my life that I've experienced basic needs insecurity, I notice a common train of thought. I think to myself, no, I don't need help. No, somebody else needs help more than I do. For quite a long time, I never even thought to use the food pantry, despite the fact that I was living off of ramen noodles. Barack Obama once stated, "Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength." This quote very much captures what leadership means to me: acknowledging a need for help and satisfying that need. Sometimes a need for help is noticed in others, but more often than not, we ourselves are in need of help. It takes strength to realize that you need help, and it takes strength to accept help when you need it. Now, whether or not you are experiencing basic needs insecurity, I implore each of you as leaders to acknowledge your responsibility to care for both yourself and for others. Psychologist Brené Brown explains that daring leaders must care for and be connected to the people they lead. When confronted with the statistics that I began my talk with, UVU took action. In spring of 2019, Dean of Students Alexis Palmer established a CARE task force, for which I am a student representative. CARE stands for Coordinating Access to Resources in Education. As such, we have worked to address food insecurity on campus, spreading awareness about the food pantry, which now provides students with meal vouchers for campus restaurants, in addition to dry and canned food options. We are currently developing a campus community garden, a free-to-use textbook rental service, and free campus laundry solutions. Additionally, and importantly, the CARE Task Force has established a student emergency fund. Recently, due to a 480% increase in applications, our funds have run out. If you have the capacity, please consider donating to UVU's Student Emergency Fund. Every little bit counts. You can scan this QR code to do so. Aside from staff efforts, UVU students are engaged in supportive efforts as well. I am president of a Hand Up at UVU. Part of our mission as a UVU student club is to cultivate a community for students who have experienced or are experiencing basic needs insecurity, like I myself have. Last fall semester, we ran a winter clothing drive and a distribution effort. This spring semester, we are partnering with UVU's Center for Social Impact to gather donations for the UVU Food Pantry. For updates on our service projects, or if you'd like to be involved in the club itself, please reach out to me. We would love to have you. Today I end with a plea. Have the courage to accept help and have the courage to provide it. We are interconnected. My well-being relies on yours, and your well-being relies on mine. As is so eloquently said by my favorite philosopher, Simone de Beauvoir, one's life has value so long as one attributes value to the life of others. Thank you.
Think back with me to your freshman year of college. It probably looks something similar to this. The halls were bustling with people. There was an excitement in the air. You're embarking on a new journey, free to be whatever you want and do whatever you want. It's an exciting time. However, there were probably stresses that added on to this excitement. Having to pay for rent, tuition, books, having to find a job, make friends, fit in, choose a major. I mean, the list adds up, and it was a very stressful time. Well, let me tell you a little bit about my journey as a freshman. I came to UVU not knowing anyone here on campus. All my friends were off at different colleges throughout the state, and my family was back at home, up by Salt Lake. And I felt really lonely walking the halls. And I remember feeling lonely and insecure as I saw people happy and with their friends. I remember calling my mom in desperation and expressing my frustration and asked her, why can't I just stop someone and say, hey, will you be my friend? She told me that was probably not a good idea and told me that I should just trust and be patient and that it would all work out. Well, reluctantly, I did so. And a few days later, I ran into a friend, Alicia, that I forgot actually was going to UVU. She invited me to go to lunch with her the next day. And I was excited. So we went to lunch the next day. We talked, we laughed. We related on so many levels about our fears, our hopes, our desires for the future. And then we went our separate ways. She probably didn't think anything of that meeting, but to me it made all the difference because someone actually cared about me and understood my feelings. Well, unfortunately, my experience is not much different from many college students. 65% of college students were wrestling with anxiety before the pandemic. 3 out of 4 Americans between the ages of 18 and 24 report poor mental health tied to the pandemic. 1 out of 4 Americans between the ages of 18 and 24 reported having seriously considered suicide in the last 30 days, as of January of this year. So these CDC statistics show that before the pandemic, anxiety was a huge problem among college students, but it's only been amplified because of the pandemic. Now, why is this a problem? We have to understand what anxiety is. Anxiety is fear. It's an unsettling feeling, worry, doubt, insecurity. And if you experience that on a daily basis, that's when it becomes an anxiety disorder. Now, I'm sure everyone participating in this conference has experienced these feelings before. Well, little did I know at the time, Alicia was struggling with anxiety disorder, and she saw a therapist. And little did I know that I would come to soon realize of my anxiety disorder, and that I would take medication and go to therapy for it. And that's what made our connection powerful, is because we were able to relate to each other. And I saw Alicia as a leader because she understood me. If I were to take a leadership test, if I was to test every one of you participating in this conference for leadership, I believe that you would all test positive. And Alicia tells us why. She said, "I think we all face anxiety, leader or not, what makes a leader capable of connection is one that accepts it and uses it as a way of human commonality and connection." That's what makes us human, is our fears, our anxieties, our doubts, insecurities. Everyone experiences these feelings. And what makes it powerful is that we can connect with each other through these anxieties and fears. And that's what happened with Alicia. She was a powerful leader to me because she was able to relate with me. But in order to be powerful leaders and relate with people through these natural human tendencies, we have to learn how to manage our anxiety. And so here are a couple ways that I manage my anxiety. Number one, sleep. Sleep is huge. When I'm tired, I am definitely more anxious. Diet. When I'm hungry, my anxiety increases. Exercise. Whether it be a rigorous exercise or just moving around your body, that really reduces anxiety and worries. Breathing. There are definitely breathing techniques that help people with anxiety. However, just taking deep breaths can calm your worries and fears. Hobbies. I love to play the piano, and when I play the piano, all my worries go away. So find something that you love to do, and that will reduce your anxiety. Also, connection and service. Alicia and I connected with each other, and that reduced our anxiety because we were able to relate and find commonality. In addition, just talking with people lets us not focus on our worries, but focus on others. And when we serve people, think outside of ourselves and think about someone else. Our anxieties and worries are put away for a second, and we can find joy. However, the world may view anxiety as a weakness. I view it as a strength. I think that because we have these natural tendencies as humans, that's what makes us strong and powerful leaders. We are all capable leaders because we can connect and relate with each other. And these weaknesses are strengths. I struggle with anxiety on a daily basis. And while it may not go away, I know that everyone experiences it, and that this weakness doesn't have to be a weakness. It's a strength. For when I am weak, I am strong. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Reagan Jensen. I am currently a sophomore at Utah State University studying psychology, but I am super excited to be here with you all today. So I'm going to be talking about the strength of authenticity in serving. Authenticity is a strength that leads to developing and recognizing your other strengths. It's the first step to serving and leading others effectively. So I have a question for you all to think about. Do you know when you call the bank and you get that automated telephone operator that's like, press 1 for more options? Well, have any of you ever had a personal connection to those automated calls? Now, I can't see any of you because you're all on Zoom, but I'm going to go with probably not. Well, that's exactly how I was going about my life. I walked into every leadership opportunity looking for someone to essentially program me. I wanted and needed people to tell me exactly how I needed to act, how I needed to serve. Well, my first year up at Utah State, I decided to go out and apply for a position on the A team, which is a group of current students who help lead new student orientation. And I walked into an information meeting that they were holding where they were going to go over the ins and the outs of the position and just answer any questions that anybody had, looking for how to mold myself into the perfect A team member. Well, when the question of what advice do you have to anyone applying was asked and then answered with just be yourself, there isn't a mold we're looking to fill. You can imagine the panic that washed over my entire body as all I wanted to do was run out of the room. Well, I went back to my apartment that night, sat on the edge of my bed, and decided that I was going to be my genuine self throughout this process, no matter how terrified I was. Flash forward to right now, I went through that process, I was offered a spot on the A team, and I am now a completely different person than I was on that first day of freshman year. Well, what did that decision that night to be authentic do to how I served others, how I developed strengths? It did a lot. As I step back and compare that year on the A team to past experiences of leadership, I see a noticeable change in myself. I see my confidence in my abilities increase. The amount of real and meaningful connections I had skyrocketed. I saw more people trust me, and I trusted more people. Authenticity means representing one's genuine nature, and that looks different for everybody, and there are a lot of different aspects that contribute to a well-rounded, authentic leader. And one of them that I want to focus on for a minute is authentic connection. When you're really connected to somebody, you know each other. It's not just surface level connection, but you know each other deeply. You don't just hear what they're saying, but you're actively listening. And these key parts of authentic connection don't just need to be in your personal relationships, but in your leading and serving relationships as well. Why, you may ask, and that's because people who effectively serve and lead others have the trust of those they serve and lead. And what's that first step to authentic connection? Trust. A disconnected and inauthentic leader is not effective. The more you start to accept and be what you have to offer, the easier making those connections and learning those strengths becomes. Being authentic and making these connections has a huge impact on everybody you serve. They'll value and respect your opinions. They'll see the opportunity to grow and to learn with you. They'll see their worth, and they'll start to develop and utilize their own strengths to serve others. So I have 3 things that you can start doing today to embrace that authenticity and to develop those strengths. The first is to assess your fears. People who are authentic are courageous and they're vulnerable. I was afraid of being imperfect, of people exposing that I had no idea what I was doing, and of not fitting in. But when you're afraid of being your true self, how are you going to find time to serve people? You're not. You need to address those, you need to work through them, and you need to start now. Second, start making a conscious effort to be mindful. Be mindful as new emotions arise as you work to be authentic. Don't suppress them and let those thoughts go unaddressed and build up and create anxiety, guilt, and shame, because that only further impairs your ability to be authentic. When you're aware of your emotions, your thoughts, and your intentions, your strengths come far easier than working from a place of ignorance. And then finally is to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Being authentic is not easy, and if you're uncomfortable doing it, that probably means you're doing it right. Now make sure that you have boundaries in place as well. Being an authentic leader does not mean that you need to share your entire life story with everybody that you meet, or that you have to make your private life public. Your private life can stay private. In the end, being an authentic leader means letting those that you serve see that you have their best interests at heart, that you're there to be a support system, that you're trustworthy. In the end, it boils down to letting them see that the person they are listening to and learning from is real, is human, and that can be uncomfortable. That puts you in that growth zone, which for at least me is a place of awkward and of scary. You're gonna make mistakes, and that's okay. Just go into each day looking to find your strengths through that uncomfortable growth. Those are the 3 things that I have for you to start embracing that authenticity and finding and utilizing your strengths. It was not just that one decision in my apartment that night that led me to where I am today. That was the first of hundreds of hard and uncomfortable decisions where I chose courage over fear, growth over comfort, and being mindful over being oblivious. That's what has led me to finding my strengths and making these meaningful connections. So start embracing and realizing that being your authentic self is one of your biggest strengths, and start utilizing it to serve others. Thank you.
Winston Churchill said, "History will be kind to me, for I choose to write it." And what I love so much about that quote is the proactivity behind it. Rather than being reactive to any given situation, with that statement, it emboldens us and allows us the opportunity to take the upper hand, to rise above our circumstances, and to take action. Right now, there's no question this has been and will go down in history as one of the most tumultuous times that we've faced throughout history. It's been difficult on a number of counts for small businesses, large corporations, relationships, education. The list goes on and on. So what do? Do we allow this time of misfortune to define us, or do we choose to be proactive, take the upper hand, and define it, and recognize what we're going to do with the set of circumstances and what we're going to utilize it for in our lives moving forward? Winston Churchill was one of our most iconic leaders because he did exactly that. He didn't wait for times to mellow out. He didn't wait for calm waters. He went in full bore in every situation, and he was extremely proactive in his approach in recognizing and addressing issues as they came. That's why he has been recognized as one of our most iconic leaders throughout history. One person who's been a tremendous role model in my life has been Ben Carson, and I love him for this reason exactly. And for those of you who don't know him, Ben Carson wasn't always Ben Carson. He's now known as a world-renowned neurosurgeon, but he didn't start out that way. In fact, he was brought up in poverty, raised in the projects with a mother who was geared with nothing more than a third grade level of education. He was surrounded by gang violence, his brother was involved in it, and he didn't have a father who was actively present in his home life. He struggled tremendously in school. In fact, he was ranked as being perhaps one of the lowest performing students in his class, if not his entire school. He was told repeatedly throughout the duration of his life that he wouldn't live to achieve anything substantial or great. And he believed that for a long time, but despite this belief, he had a vision for himself, and he knew that he was worth more. He saw his capacity, and he believed in it, and he went forward with it. So despite not having a strong educational foundation, despite not having readily available resources there for him that were going to help him launch forward in his endeavors, he held true to his vision, he held true to his values, and what he wanted so much more than anything was to make a difference in the world, especially in the lives of children. So with that in mind, he went through and he challenged himself in every way, shape, and form, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually even. And he progressed and progressed to the point where he got to where he was today, and he made it into medical school. He was even told by his own administrators, by his teachers, by his classmates, by family members, the smartest thing that you could do is to give up. Just drop out. You're going to save yourself a lot of heartache, a lot of grief, a lot of money and strain that could have otherwise been easily avoided. You have other strengths in other areas, so utilize those. He recognized that he didn't have everything that he needed at the time, but he was going to find a way to make it happen for him. He took that proactive approach and now is, like I said, renowned as one of the world's most incredible neurosurgeons, amongst other things. For that reason, I've admired that tenacity. And how can we emulate those qualities with the present circumstances being what they are? It's not easy, and it's not going to be. It hasn't been easy since the start of the pandemic. With the pandemic, it seems that everything has gone in a downward spiral progressively since then. We've seen such tumultuous times regarding the election, regarding racism, the presidency, everything else that you can think of, and it seems to just be an ongoing dilemma that we've been faced with. So how can we be proactive in addressing this? Right now is the time where we need to find clarity through times of crisis. Recognize what your strengths are. Recognize what strengths you've utilized in the past during times of crisis for yourself, if it was a personal one, and even if it's a global one. And you need to learn to utilize those to your benefit. Leaders lead, oftentimes subconsciously. They don't recognize the impacts that they're constantly making, but people are constantly watching and observing them. They're watching the examples that they set. When you hone in on your true values, and you abide by them, and you lead through them, others will observe, and they will learn to follow suit and do the same. These will make lasting impacts, not only for yourself, but for others. And in these times of crisis, your values may be the only thing that you have progressing you forward. It can be hard, and honestly, sometimes the easiest approach is to hunker down and hide from the world, hide from the problems. And honestly, I'll be honest, I took time to do that too when the pandemic first hit. I felt extremely depressed, extremely discouraged, and I was punishing myself for feeling those things. Don't punish yourself and don't hide from the reality of the situation. Yes, we are dealt with a pretty difficult set of circumstances right now, but we have complete control as to how we choose to respond to them. It's much easier said than done, but I promise you that it is doable, and others have done it. This isn't the first pandemic that we've experienced throughout the history of time, and it won't be the last. Right now, when everything is still up in the air and there's so much uncertainty, it can be hard to move forward. It can be hard to take action. But here's the truth of the matter. We're always living in times of uncertainty. This has been a constant. We never know if tomorrow's guaranteed. We never know if things could fall flat. We never know if our businesses, if our educational goals, if our personal endeavors could fall through the cracks. That's why being proactive and constantly looking ahead. Don't immerse yourself in the chaos. Rise above it. Choose to shift your perspective away from the conflict and find the opportunity in the opposition. I promise you that if you're able to do this, you will not only lead yourself through these times of crisis, but you will lead others effectively as well. Thank you.
So today I'm going to be presenting about the comfort of your own skin and escaping that comfort zone. So there's this quote by Ray Lewis, who is a former NFL player, and he said, "Before anything great is really achieved, your comfort zone must be disturbed." And so I think there's this phrase in this quote that kind of makes us cringe a little bit, and that's a comfort zone, right? So what is a comfort zone? A comfort zone is a place or state of mind where we feel safe and at ease, no stress. I imagine it to be a place where there's velvet fluffy pillows, chocolate-covered strawberries, beds made out of clouds. Sounds nice, right? But this nice place, our comfort zone, actually prevents us from growing if we reside within it. It is at the point of discomfort where we can achieve something great. Just like Ray Lewis said, if we want to accomplish any of our goals, achieve anything great that we want to accomplish, we have to escape outside of our comfort zones if we want that growth and that progress within ourselves. And so what does our comfort zone consist of? And it looks different to everyone. Everyone has different boundaries, everything, people get uncomfortable for different reasons. And so for some people, it could be living local, living with family, only making mac and cheese for dinner, the list goes on. And so the opposite of our comfort zone is doing things that are hard for us, doing things that make our heart beat a little fast, and doing things that we probably wouldn't think that we would do. And so I want to emphasize two principles today. So first, finding comfort in our own skin and finding that confidence within ourselves. And then second, how to escape outside our comfort zone and what does that look like? So there's this quote by Christina G. Hibbert, who is a clinical psychologist and founder of the Easy Postpartum Wellness Coalition. And she said, "If we accept ourselves for who we are, embrace our strengths and weaknesses, find beauty in the things you do have or things you're good at, you will find comfort in yourself." So when we have this positive mindset about ourselves and identify those strengths and identify those positive qualities in ourselves, we can have comfort in ourselves. And we can have that confidence in ourselves when we deflect those negative thoughts and the self-doubt. And when we stop comparing ourselves to other people, we can find that comfort. And so I'm going to explain a principle here that might seem a little ironic at first, but another key principle to finding comfort in our own skin is to actually step outside your comfort zone. And so when we step outside our comfort zones and we do things that are hard for us, do things that make us feel uncomfortable, we realize the power and the strength that we have as an individual. And we realize, whoa, I did that, I can do that. And then we realize so much of our potential. So when I was a freshman at UVU, I knew no one coming to campus. I was super shy, reserved. I lacked confidence in myself, had extreme social anxiety. And so it wasn't until I went to a men's soccer game with my friend Tori and that I noticed this guy in the crowd. He was decked out with all this UVU gear. He just seemed to be really involved in the game. And I figured he'd be involved in any clubs on campus. So I asked him. And he said he was involved in UVUSA, which is the student government here at UVU, and he immediately invited me to join. And ultimately, I was like, heck no, I don't want to do that. That is out of my comfort zone, and all this self-doubt came, right? But in the end, I did it because I knew it would help me grow. And although it was really hard and uncomfortable, it helped me grow. And so it led to multiple different opportunities, and I met the people that I did, and it was because of that small moment of discomfort. It led to growth. I found comfort in my own skin, and ultimately just because of that one decision. So I think this quote summarizes it well. I have realized it is during the times that I'm far outside my element that I experience myself the most. You will find yourself as you do things that are hard for you. You will find strength, and you will realize the capacity you have. It is through overcoming those fears and hardships that reside outside what makes us comfortable that we will start to feel comfortable in our own skin. And so part 2, escaping out of the comfort zone. How do we do this? What does it look like, right? So I'm going to explain 4 different tips to help us escape outside the comfort zone and what that looks like. The first tip is to know what your comfort zone is. Know what the boundaries are, know what makes you uncomfortable, write it down on a piece of paper, draw it out if you have to. But when we can identify what our comfort zone is, we know where we can progress and where we know where we can grow. And then step number 2 is to get comfortable with discomfort. It's so natural that when we're feeling discomfort, we equate it to be a bad feeling, but ultimately it's a feeling of growth because it's stretching us as an individual. And number 3 is to take the first step. Take that initial step to jump in the cold pool, because after you do it over and over again, it will be much easier, and you can rely on that one experience, that first step that you took as a foundation for doing it over and over again. And then 4th, begin with small changes in your life. As you begin with small changes such as going to bed at a different time, trying a new restaurant, trying a new food at a different restaurant, things like that, once we do those small things, the bigger things don't seem as intimidating or scary, and we have the power and the strength to accomplish those things that are outside of our comfort zone. So what are you waiting for? Start now. Embrace your strengths. Be proud of who you are and find comfort in your own skin. Embrace those difficulties. Live outside of your comfort zone, and ultimately you will become a stronger, better person and a more refined leader in your life. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Alicia Mills. I'm a student at Utah State University. I'm studying kinesiology, and I'm just really happy to be here with you guys. So when I was a little girl, this is a picture of me, and I had some really big dreams. I had a lot of faith in myself and love for myself, and I had a lot of, my self-perception was huge. And I wanted to do a lot of good things. So when I started kindergarten, I started playing sports. And I fell in love with playing sports. It became one of my favorite things. And I developed the dream to become a college athlete. And so as I continued to play sports, when I was in high school, I tried out for my basketball team for the high school. And the head coach pulled me aside and told me that there were a lot of other girls that played my position that were better than me, and that they didn't have room for me on the team, and that I wasn't going to be able to come with them and play basketball in the summer tournaments. And that really shook me. It kind of really discouraged me, and I let that opinion set on me, and I let it define me as a person, as an athlete. And over time, I gave up on the dream of becoming a college athlete. Over the next year, I had a lot of experiences where I decided to stop listening to other people's opinions of myself. I wanted to get over that and not let them define me as a person or what my dreams could be or what I could reach. So I eventually started playing basketball again, and I tried out for the team again, and I made it the next year, and I was able to play, and it was a really amazing experience. This is me now. I'm a student at Utah State. I'm not a college athlete, but I am working towards chasing my dreams every day and not defining myself by the opinions of others. I think this really happens to most everybody. When we're little, we have big dreams and big beliefs, and we think that when we grow up, we're gonna do great things. And as adults, we really support these little kids, and we're like, yes, become a superhero. You can be a princess. You are. We believe in them, and we help them so that their perception of themselves is really big. And then as we get older, something happens where we we encounter people who are dream killers or people who want to give us a reality check, let us know what we're capable of and what we're not. And these opinions, as we let them rest on ourselves and kill our dreams, we fit ourselves to fit into mediocrity, and we define ourselves by our weaknesses and our struggles, and we change ourselves so that we can fit into a society that honestly thinks it's cool to hate ourselves. And this is a really big problem because we start with a really big perception of ourselves, and as we grow up, it shrinks. When we get to the point of our lives when we can be reaching these dreams and accomplishing these great things, we don't believe in ourselves anymore. And so this is a really big thing that we need to work through, and it takes a long time because over these years, we basically plant a tree in our mindset of what we believe about ourselves. We water these negative opinions, and our self-perception shrinks. But there is hope, and we can overcome it, and we should. And so I wanted to share with you one thing that's small and simple today that you can start with, because this is a tree in a lot of our minds of our negative self-talk and opinions of ourselves that we just have to chop down one little choice at a time. And so we look at our life and our problems as something way bigger than us. When we have this small perception of ourselves, we can't reach our goals. We can't get to that star because the problem is huge in front of us. So what we need to do is start changing that mindset and opinion of ourselves so that we can be bigger than our problems. So the way that you do that, the first step at least, is to take a minute and think about the things that you love about yourself. Whether that is something about your looks or the way that you treat other people, the way that you are a friend. Write down a few of those things and then continue forward and write down what you wish you were. Write down the things that you want people to describe you as, whether that's a leader or someone who's intentional, someone who's kind, and just keep going with that. And in my experience when I was doing this activity, I definitely felt like I was lying to myself. Like, you are not these things that you're writing down, and you're never going to be. And so that's a pretty normal thing when you try this, but just keep writing down. Sit with the uncomfortableness of that potential because you have strengths, you have greatness, you have goodness to offer the world. And when you start believing in that, that's when you can make changes. So after you have this list, put it somewhere that you can see it pretty frequently. And eventually these words will start to be part of the opinion that you define of yourself. And you will start to see that you grow. You go from believing your problems are too big to being bigger than your problems. And it's all in your mindset because you have great potential, you can change the world, and your strengths are good enough. Thank you.
There once was a man that found a butterfly that was trying to hatch from its cocoon. He decided to stop and watch for hours as it struggled to get itself through the small hole in the cocoon. Well, after a while, the butterfly stopped progressing, and it looked like it was stuck. So the man decided to help this butterfly. He grabbed a pair of scissors and went to the cocoon and cut it open and released this butterfly. Well, it emerged easily, but when it came out, it had this swollen body and shriveled up wings. The man didn't think anything of it and waited patiently for this butterfly to enlarge its wings and to fly away. Well, that never happened. The butterfly spent the rest of its life crawling on the ground and was unable to fly with this swollen body and shriveled up wings. What this kind man didn't realize was that the restricting cocoon the restricting cocoon and the struggle to get through that small hole was nature forcing that fluid from the body to its wings to become big and strong to get through that hole and to fly. So that struggle and that slow progress of that butterfly was essential in order for it to become this healthy, beautiful butterfly and to be able to fly away. When we go to the gym and we're working out and we're trying to gain more muscle, this is what's actually going on inside our bodies. When we expose our muscles to intense stress, such as lifting weights, our muscles become damaged, which sounds bad, but it's actually a great sign. When we have our damaged cells, it sends molecules to the immune system, which come and it repairs it. So this is the start of the muscle building process. That damage and repair cycle over time eventually builds up that muscle and is able to take on those heavier weights. Since our bodies are already modified to our everyday activities, we aren't able to gain those strengths just by living. We have to go out of our way and lift those weights in order to build up those muscles. Even though it may be hard, it will, so sorry. But overall of the story, your muscles become damaged and you have to repair them for them to become bigger. One of my favorite books is called The 5-Second Rule, and it's by this girl, Mel Robbins. And she suffers a lot of trial in her life, and she shares that in the book. And she becomes, and so some of her struggles was that she was job hopping throughout the years, couldn't find a career that stuck for her. And at one point she was unemployed, and her husband's restaurant was failing. They were $800,000 in debt, and she felt like her marriage was falling apart. So obviously this was causing a lot of anxiety and depression in her life. At that point, she didn't even want to get out of bed in the morning and struggled to do so just to get her kids out the door for school. Well, one day she was watching TV and she saw a rocket bolt across the TV screen, and she came up with this random idea. What if when I got up in the morning, I would bolt out of bed just like that rocket? So the next morning, as the alarm went off, instead of lying there and thinking about it and just hitting snooze, she started counting backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and she sat up. And just like that, she stopped thinking and started moving forward. Now it's called the 5-Second Rule, that concept, and she is a best-selling author of the book. She has 17 million streams of a TED Talk about this topic and is speaking all around the world about this, and even is the host of her own talk show, the Mel Robbins Show. I'm sure at this point you're starting to see a pattern with all of these stories, which is it takes trial and struggle in order to gain your strengths. And I'm not just talking about your muscle strengths, but your character strengths that make you who you are. Do you ever look at someone, whether it's a person in your life or a leader you look up to, and think, wow, they really have their life together. They have all these amazing qualities, and they've accomplished so much. Usually my next thought is, how did they even get to that point? Growing up, that never even crossed my mind. I just thought that these leaders were born with these strengths, and that's how they became so successful. And they are, and I never thought about the steps that they took to get there and gaining those strengths. Now that I'm older, I understand that it's simple, but it's not easy. Everyone is born with certain qualities about them, and some things come a little bit more natural. But when it comes to being the best leader you can be and serving those around you, those strengths are going to take some work. Building a strength is a constant battle. You're failing and you're learning and you're failing again, but little by little, that trait is what becomes strong. You start building these experiences and these hardships, and over time, they start to stack up. And after a while of trial and error, you're able to take a step back, look at all those building blocks, and consider that a strength in your life. It's like anything else. You work, you practice, and eventually you get better. That is when it becomes a strength. Once you gain those strengths, what you do next is what's most important. Mel Robbins uncovered this amazing strength over time and is now sharing with the rest of the world how to tackle their own challenges, and is just changing thousands and thousands of lives. She changed mine. Leaders take what they have learned and experienced and use those strengths to serve those around them. As you guys leave this conference, I hope that you have a different perspective when you go through those challenges and those struggles in your life, because those hardships are just getting you closer and closer to accomplishing your dreams and gaining those strengths. But what you do next is, what makes you leader is what you do next with those strengths. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Annie Peterson, and I am so excited to be with you all today, speaking on grit. I am a senator for the School of the Arts at Utah Valley University, so let's begin. Let's talk about surfing. It's one of my favorite sports, and I wish I could do it more, but alas, I live in Utah. This picture here is a picture that my family took on Del Mar Beach in 2004. In this picture, my family has just gotten out of the water, and my brothers and I have just finished our surfing lessons with Uncle Chris. Uncle Chris is kind of an Indiana Jones character in our family. He hunts, he fishes, and he surfs. He can do it all. And so when he decided to teach me and my brothers how to surf, we were thrilled. So my brothers and I set out and paddled out on our boards with Uncle Chris, and we were just filled with glee. My brothers were pushing each other and trying to show dominance as to who could be the best surfer. Meanwhile, I was just trying to paddle and keep up and do my best. Eventually, as our surf lessons progressed, I got up on my board first. So take that, John and Sam. But for reals, I learned through this surfing lesson with Uncle Chris that sometimes in life, when we're gritting through something hard, we need to put our blinders on and focus on ourselves. We need to feel the water, experience the waves, and keep going forward. In my experience in my life, I've had some experiences with my head, my heart, and my soul. And let's start with the head. So I used to play volleyball in high school, and I love the sport. I ate, breathed, and slept volleyball. This is a picture of me and my dad in the ER after I dove headfirst into some bleachers at Timpanogos High School down the road. I cracked my head open, and as you can see in that picture, I'm a little bit dazed but optimistic. I was hopeful that I could get back to the game and finish it off, but to my dismay, I had a goose egg on my forehead and a pretty bad concussion. And so I went home that night feeling a little bit disheartened, but glad that we won the game. As things progressed, I started to develop a stutter and lose my ability to read. And as a 4.0 high school student who was super uptight, I got really frustrated that in my AP classes, reading was hard and I couldn't get out a word. So my family and I dug a little deeper, and we realized that I needed to get brain surgery to recover from the complications from my concussion. So this is a bit of a gnarly picture, but it is the aftermath of my brain surgery that took place in February of 2015. I had a good relationship with my neurosurgeon, Dr. Brackmeyer, and he would constantly tease me because I was so frustrated that I wasn't healing faster or moving forward faster because I was putting in the work. I was gritting through it. And he'd always tell me, Annie, you're your own special kind of snowflake. And he meant that I was so impatient and so gritty that I was missing the point. I was missing the point of learning from these experiences that I was having. So let's move to my heart. So eventually, I healed from my concussion. I regained my ability to speak with fluency and read with a higher level. And I was able to go to college. I began my college experience at the University of Utah and was very grateful for that. I started school and realized in my freshman nutrition course that I didn't have the healthiest relationship with food. After talking with my nutrition professor and asking her what I should do for a friend who was struggling with eating behaviors, she suggested that I send this friend to get some help with an eating disorder. And so this friend, who was me, went ahead and asked for some help. And I enlisted myself in a 24-hour care facility to get help for this eating disorder that had plagued my life for 10 years. When I enlisted in my 24-hour care facility, I learned that my resting heart rate was 38 beats per minute. To give you some perspective, a healthy resting heart rate is between 45 and 50 beats per minute. So, in summary, my body was shutting down. This is a print that I created while at UVU in Nancy's printmaking class. To illustrate how I felt in my eating disorder. I felt like I had to put on a perfect facade and that I was stuck in these thorny vines of perfection. And it was in my recovery from my eating disorder that I have learned and am still learning that grit is such a great attribute, but you need compassion as well. It was compassion that allowed me to untangle myself from these thorny vines, and it was compassion that gave myself patience in the process. This brings me to my soul. So today, I am 3 years in my recovery from my eating disorder, and I'm very proud of that. But it's still hard. The day-to-day is still hard. It takes grit. It takes grit to read through my textbooks when I have a migraine. It takes grit to eat food when I don't want to. It takes grit to just look in the mirror and accept myself for who I am, even if it's not the person that I want to be right now. And that's where compassion comes in. It takes compassion to know that I can become who I want to be in time. It takes compassion to become more loving and authentic. It takes compassion to connect to my fellow students on a real level. And that's where I am today. I am living a soulful life by combining what I have learned from my head and my heart. So I want to ask you, if you have a pencil and paper near you, to my friends on Zoom, to write down what your takeaway is. I believe that by combining compassion with grit, you can multiply your productivity. And productivity isn't the goal, it is growth that is the goal. Compassion is a multiplier of grit. And we all have the potential to be great. So let's be more compassionate with ourselves. Thank you.
All right, here we go. I'm kind of nervous and excited. Thanks, Annie, for that. So I'm Chandler Joly. So I'm a digital marketer here at UVU, and I'm graduating this semester, and I'm super excited. And along with that, I'm the marketing club president, so that's a small flex. Join my club if you want. And ultimately, the main thing I want to talk about today is social media. And production team, get ready, because I have a lot of slides and I'm very passionate, so good luck with this. So the main thing I want to talk about is social media and how to remove some of the negative benefits we find with it, right? And so ultimately, I first want to define what is this sphere of social media for my conversation, right? Because I'm not just focusing on like Facebook and Twitter and Snapchat and Instagram and WhatsApp, right? I'm also focusing on YouTube and Discord and Twitch and even Reddit, right? These other services kind of all encompassed in this idea of social media, right? because there's a lot of negative effects that we're aware of emotionally, but I don't think we do a good job putting a voice to it. And so for the next hot second, I'm going to throw at you a ton of different studies. Put on your seatbelt of learning because it's kind of a ride. So first and foremost, we use social media in kind of two facets, right? We use it ultimately to preoccupy ourselves and likewise to reduce negative feelings. And this creates this cycle of tolerance and a craving for more. And so we'll use our devices, we'll preoccupy ourselves, negative emotions go away, preoccupy ourselves, negative emotions go away, preoccupy ourselves, negative emotions go away. And it creates this cycle of doing this over and over and over again. And this is a dangerous process for us to be in because I'll show you why. Right, so 45% of users aged 18 to 22 feel like they have this social media addiction. This was in 2021, I'm looking at all of you. Half of you right now need to listen to me. The other half of you, still listen to me, because this is good. Young adults use phones in coping with negative emotions in the sense of an attachment object, providing comfort like a pacifier for infants, right? 2019. Chronic device use when alone may inhibit identity development and other psychological developmental tasks. That's done in 2020. The daily time we once devoted to family and friends is now wasted by chasing fake happiness online. Social media operates like the slot machines in Vegas. There are only two industries that call their customers users: illegal drugs and software. Now, this is the important one. Thanks, production team. You caught up pretty well. This is the big one. We are training and conditioning a whole new generation of people that when we are uncomfortable or lonely or uncertain or afraid, we have a digital pacifier for ourselves that is atrophying our own ability to deal with that. And so this is kind of the major point of my conversation today is that when we were growing up, and I'm looking at all of us when we were 12, we knew drugs was bad and we knew drinking alcohol was bad. But no one really told us technology had this potential to be bad. And so we kept using it. And 10 years later, we've developed this kind of attachment to our phones. And as leaders, we have this responsibility, and I'm not talking about responsibility to like your classmates or to your position or your school or university. I'm talking about responsibility to you to live your best life, to create memories here and now, and invest in things that reinvest into you. It's our responsibility to not use technology as our pacifier, but rather as our tool. And so ultimately today, I want to talk about 3 things that you can do to maybe decrease this pacifier in your life, right? To find your best life again without technology being a part of that part of your life. That was redundant, but whatever. But low-key, it's going to be hard because you've been doing this for 10 years. So like, I'm same boat you are. I've been trying this for a little bit. It is hard. So here comes some fun. So I don't know if I have Pokemon nerds here in chat. If you are, please type in chat. I can't see chat, but type anyway. So there's 3 stages I want to give you, right? There's an easy, a medium, and a hard, right? For my nerds, we've got a Charmander, Charmeleon, and Charizard level of changes you can make in your life. So from our Charmanders in chat, thanks, Gabe. From our Charmanders in chat, I want you guys to do just one simple thing, right? And the only invitation I have for you is take the notifications off your phone. So go to I only know how to use Apple because I'm an Apple guy. I don't know about Android users, I'm sorry. But go into your settings and turn off notifications. Tell Facebook no, tell Instagram no. You use the apps on your phone when you want to use them, not when your phone tells you to use them. And that by itself is a huge step in removing the use of technology to pacify negative feelings in your life. Secondly, for my chameleons out there, for you guys, it's a little harder. I want you to remove social media from your phone. Just go for it. Just hold it right now, wait till it jiggles and hit that X button and then just get rid of it. Again, Apple, I don't know how Android works. And just get rid of it. Remove it. Use it only on your desktop or on your laptops. Because statistically and according to studies, you'll use it less because it's a bit more inconvenient, and you'll also use it as a tool and not as a way to cope. And that's what we want as you as leaders, and that's what I want as you as a person. Find this new way of life, right? I'm a Charmeleon, right? I'm not a Charizard, right? For you Charizards in chat, I'm looking at you guys. You guys, I have the big one. There's this big study out that if you take kind of this social media fast and you just step away from all social media, you find a super huge peak of happiness and significance in life because you start living in the real world and not chasing this fake world again. So I'm working on this, where I'm not there yet, but for those of you who are ready, take this step and go ahead and remove social media. Because I promise you guys, social media is a huge tool. Don't get me wrong, I'm a marketer. I live in this world. I make money in this world. But it has a lot of side effects that we didn't see coming when we were 12. And these are just small things you can do to live your best life again while still maneuvering these technology tools of social media. And with that, guys, that's the end of my talk. Thanks.
Woohoo. All right. Thank you guys for staying here if you stayed. If you went to go see Ammon, I don't blame you. He's one of my favorite people, so I respect you for making that choice as well. Today, we are going to be talking about debunking personal myths. A little quick disclaimer before I start my presentation. I have a kidney stone right now, so I'm in a lot of pain, and I'm on pain meds, so if this is really scattered and weird, just go with it. Cut me some slack. Cutting some slack is going to be a huge part of this presentation, so it's pretty relevant. So I'm cutting myself some slack. You should do it too. All right. So you are a liar, and you're probably a pretty good one. And today, I am going to prove that. I surveyed some of my friends on social media, and I asked them to tell me the lies that they tell themselves, or that their mind tells them on a regular basis. And these are just a few of the responses that I received. They range from, I'm dumb, ugly, and selfish. Nobody wants you. I don't deserve that. I have to solve this all by myself. I'm not worthy of my friends or significant others. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. People dislike me. They only put up with me out of common courtesy, and so on. I admit it was really hard to hear my friends admit these things to me, that their mind was sending them these messages, and in some cases that they believed them. If some of these messages sound familiar to you or look familiar to you, then you're a liar. And as I said, you're probably a pretty good one, because you have believed some of these lies that you're telling yourself. So today, I want to help you do away with these lies and prove them wrong and debunk your personal myths that you've created, that your brain has made up for you. And I've broken it into 3 general categories based on the feedback I received from my friends. Just 3 general myths that people are telling themselves. And then we're going to talk about 3 common myths. I don't know enough, I'm not doing enough, and I am not enough. Then we're going to talk about how to write a new story. So let's start the journey. The first myth is, I don't know enough. Now, with any myth, there is a tiny bit of truth usually behind them. And with any lie, all the best lies have a little bit of truth in them, right? So, if the lie is, I don't know enough, there is some truth to that. But here's the positive thing. Learning is a lifelong activity. So, just because you might not know enough right now, it does not mean that you will never know enough or can never know enough. The beauty of being human is that you constantly have the ability to learn and grow. The idea, I don't know enough, is what we call a fixed mindset. You have held yourself hostage in this place where there is no growth. But if you tell yourself, I don't know enough yet, or I don't know enough right now, you open yourself up to a growth mindset where you open yourself up to learning more and getting to that place. There's a wonderful quote by Pearl S. Buck that says, "The youth do not know enough to be prudent, and therefore they attempt the impossible and achieve it generation after generation." This quote, when I heard it, just blew my mind, because people didn't know what the internet was capable of 30 years ago, because the internet didn't really exist in the form that we know it today. People didn't know enough then, but it doesn't mean that they were not capable of learning more and giving us what we have now. And maybe you're in the same place. Maybe you don't know something right now, or you don't know enough now, because that knowledge is yet to be found and does not exist and is going to be discovered by you or somebody else. We don't have everything figured out yet. I don't know everything is maybe better than I don't know enough. But the beauty of it, nobody knows everything. That's the secret. Even if they tell you they do, then they're a liar as well. Myth number 2. I'm not doing enough. Now, this has become a probably pretty prevalent lie that we've all been telling or being told by our minds during these crazy times when a lot of us are stuck in our homes. It's been like a year. It's been pretty rough. And it can be really easy to feel like you're not doing enough. But here's the question I want to ask you. Who set the expectation? What is doing enough, and who set the expectation? If you look at it, the answer is probably you. You probably set that expectation for yourself. And that's not very fair. You'll find in life as you go throughout life that people expect way less of you than you expect of yourself, and not in a rude way. It's not because they don't think you're capable. It's because they don't spend nearly as much time thinking about you as you spend thinking about yourself. So you set these crazy high expectations for yourself of doing all these crazy things and achieving so much, and when you don't reach them, you disappoint yourself. But if that's the thing, you only disappoint yourself, because only you held that expectation. And here's what I will say. This quote floats around the internet. You see it on mental health positive social media accounts, which I used to run one, so I'm totally guilty of this. But it's a great quote. It says, "It's okay if all you did today was survive." And in these times especially, that's about all we can ask for, is that you survive. Today, that's all I'm doing. Like literally, that's how it feels right now. I'm giving this presentation and I didn't even think that was possible like 24 hours ago, but I'm surviving and I'm here. And right now, anything is enough. You know, we're getting a little sappy and sincere here, and it's going to get even worse, so just buckle your seatbelts, everybody. The pain meds make me emotional, so we're going to get there. It's okay. Anything is enough. Just getting out of bed right now is enough. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. That's what I did today. I got out of bed, and I'm pretty proud of myself for doing that, because even that seemed like an insurmountable challenge at one point. And this is the third myth. This is the harshest and probably the most prevalent myth. I am not enough. You could change this to say, I am not enough. I am not worthy, whatever. This myth is the heaviest, the hardest out of the three, because this goes past what you're doing or what you think or what you say. And this is attacking at the heart of what you are, which hurts pretty bad. And I've been in this place. You're not alone if you have felt this way, that you're not enough. The imposter syndrome can be really real. I had a moment the other night where I just broke down because I have this new job working in my field, and I was just terrified that they were going to find out that maybe I'm not enough. I'm not good enough for this job, or I'm not qualified enough. I'm not enough. And they were going to find me out, and then they were going to fire me. Obviously, that's ridiculous. And let's talk about why it's ridiculous. When you say I'm not enough, I want you to ask these questions. I'm not enough for what? I'm not enough for whom? And why not? Because quite often, I think you'll find that the answers to these questions aren't true. When you say, I'm not enough for my friends, I'm not enough for my job, I think you're going to find, really, as soon as you interrogate these thoughts that come into your mind, these lies that are being told, as soon as you turn around and interrogate them, you will find they have very little evidence against you. And do you know what the best way to handle this is? Just ask. If you're saying, I'm not enough for my friends, well, why don't you ask your friends if you're enough for them? I bet you 99% of the time they're going to say that you are. And when they say you're enough, and if they say, maybe you could be doing a little bit more, don't let that destroy you. That is okay. You are a human, and you are constantly learning and growing, and that is an opportunity for more growth and for more learning. But like I said, 99% of the time, they're going to say, yes, of course you are. Why would you think you aren't enough? Here's a wonderful little quote. I found it on a post. You are good enough. Only you can set that standard, like I said before. But realize that you may have to walk alone for a bit, because not everyone will recognize it. We all see the night sky, but only a few of us actually see the stars. And if there are people who don't realize that you're good enough, cut them out, because they're liars too. And here's the powerful thing. I know this is a hard step, but decide that you are enough and watch what happens. Once you have made the decision that you are enough, that you, right now, as a person, are enough, you will amaze yourself. You'll be amazed by what you can accomplish just by making that little decision. So let's do some final takeaways here. I'm going to tell you how to write a news story. Now that these myths have been debunked, they've been pushed away, we need a news story. So what do? Well, first, we got to confront the lies. We got to interrogate them. We got to pick them apart. When the thought comes that it's like, you are not doing enough. Samuel, you're not doing enough. You've been sitting playing God of War for the last 4 hours. You're not doing enough. What do? I confront the lies. I interrogate them. I pick them apart. And I say, I need to take care of myself right now. There's nothing more important than me at this moment in my well-being. And if my well-being requires me to sit on my couch and play God of War for 4 hours, then darn it, I am going to do that. And my mind can get out of here. Because, like I said, you are enough. And you're enough for yourself. And when you're enough for yourself, watch what happens. Nothing else. Nothing can stop you. So interrogate them, pick them apart. Like I said, the lies that are being told to you by your mind probably have very little evidence. When they say you're not enough, you say, why not? Why am I not enough? It's not going to have anything to come back with you with. And if it does, quickly turn it around on them. I'm not enough. Oh, yeah, you're not enough because you don't know this thing. You don't know the quadratic formula, so you're not enough. Well, that's fine. Who needs the quadratic formula anyway? Done. Interrogated. It's out of there. Here's a good little quote from Leo F. Buscaglia. This took a weird turn. Thank you for sticking with me. Let's get back to the sincere thing. Love yourself. Accept yourself. Forgive yourself. And be good to yourself. Because without you, the rest of us are without a source of many wonderful things. My friends, I like to think you're all my friends. Right now, you're just a giant camera lens, but you are my friends beyond that. This is the key to debunking personal myths and to eliminating self-hatred, especially accepting yourself and forgiving yourself and being good to yourself. You deserve the same respect that you offer to others. You deserve the forgiveness you offer to others, and you deserve the acceptance you offer so willingly to others. And you deserve the goodness that you offer to others. I hope that when you think to yourself, I'm not doing enough, that you sit there, maybe you accept it, you forgive yourself, and then you move on. Just like you would do to anybody else. Don't judge yourself. You're the easiest person to judge because you know the most about yourself. And when people are nice to you and when they say things to you, you can think, oh, if only they knew who I really was, they wouldn't feel this way. But that's not true. You deserve the same love and respect and forgiveness that you offer to others. If not more so, because you know the full story. So you know exactly what's going on up there and in here. So forgive yourself. Accept yourself. Don't believe the mean, horrible things your mind wants to tell you. Because it's a liar. Your mind's a liar, so prove yourself wrong. You have the ability to take these thoughts and turn them into something good. They don't have to rule you. They don't have to hold you hostage and keep you in a place where there's no growth. Take the thoughts, interrogate them, learn from them, change the story, and move forward. And you're going to be a whole lot happier. Thank you guys for being here. I wish we could have interacted more. A cathartic thing you can do is maybe post in the chat for me, maybe a lie that you've been telling yourself, and let everyone else maybe console you and prove that wrong, because I think that might be helpful. That's what we got to do on my Facebook feed, on my Instagram, and it was really cathartic for all of us to have people express their lies and see the barrage of comments of people telling them, you're so important to me, you matter to me, you don't have to believe this. Special thanks to my lovely wife who's sitting over here making sure I don't fall over or throw up or whatever. Special thank you to Darren Ecton, my advisor throughout this whole process. He turned this jumbled mess into an actual presentation. Huge shout out to the Student Leadership and Success Studies Department for putting on this conference. I participated last year and it was a hugely wonderful experience for me, and grateful to be here again. And huge thank you to my friends who submitted their lies. You guys will remain anonymous, but you made this whole thing possible. You helped me know what to talk about, and I hope you guys tuned in. And once again, love yourself, accept yourself, forgive yourself, and be good to yourself. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Chelsea Gunther.
And I am Lauren Nix.
And we're both students at Utah State University. And we're really excited to be here today. I am a senior. I'm studying integrated studies and I'll actually be graduating this semester. I'm pretty excited.
And I am a junior in the elementary education program here at Utah State.
And we are here presenting to y'all today because we are both student leaders at Utah State. We're both members of the A team here, which isn't quite what it sounds like. We think we're super cool and we're an awesome team, but in reality what we do is we run orientation and a class called Connections here at Utah State University. Our job as leaders is to bring new students and welcome them into the Aggie family. That's a big part of what we do and the culture setting for the rest of the students on campus, which is what we're here to talk to you a little bit about today.
Yes, exactly. So we have specific culture values that we're going to talk about in this presentation. And really the cool thing about it is that we've written a story. So it's not just a normal presentation where we're just going to go through a whole bunch of slides. We're going to tell you a story. And in the story, we're going to talk about 6 culture values that we, as members of the A team, have lived and breathed for a while now. But really, they're culture values that all leaders need to try to uphold because they'll make us be those culture setters for Utah State and for UVU and for wherever else we go as leaders, because we are the people that all of our fellow peers and students and faculty will look up to.
So, this story is going to be a story that's going to be told from the perspective of you, a student leader. and a culture setter on your university. So,
without further ado, we're going to welcome you to Inside the Mind of an Influential Leader,
written by us
for you. Enjoy!
So, it's Tuesday, your least favorite day of the week if you're me, but if you're not, it's just a regular Tuesday, and you're getting ready to leave your apartment to head to your first class of the day, which is a PE class. And you really like this class. It's just a breath of fresh air. It's a nice time to kind of get out just get out some of your stress, and you have some friends in the class. It's a good time to just go and to kind of pretend that the rest of the world doesn't matter, and you can just focus on you for a few minutes. And so you leave your apartment and you're heading to campus, and you're about halfway there when you realize that you forgot a mask. And so you have this decision to make. You say to yourself, do I have a mask in my backpack, or do I need to go back home and get one? And as you're thinking about this, you think about a lot of different things, but that kind of leads us to this very first culture value of being aware. And being aware is a very important culture value because it allows us to tap into a deeper meaning of life. It allows us to just have a knowledge of what we can see, what we can smell, what we can taste, and what we can sense. It's tapping into that knowledge of the things that we can't see, even the things that we know are around us. And so as you're thinking about if you should get a mask, you think about the desk workers that work in the recreation center where you're heading to your class. You think about the friends that you'll meet up with and their roommates, and you think, part of me being a leader means that I should go back and get my mask so that I can, help support the people that might be high risk to COVID-19.
So the next part of your day, you have another class, you meet up with some friends, and you're just walking to class, catching up. You walk into this big lecture hall, and you see someone who is clearly sitting by themselves. And yes, with COVID and in-person classes, we follow the guidelines, and so we're all sitting 6 feet apart, and so everyone is sitting by themselves. But this person is in the back of the room, they're not saving any seats, and no one is around them. And you kind of feel really bad because it's a class that there's a lot of participation, lots of communication between peers, and so you're kind of like, maybe I should go sit by them. And your mind goes back to 6th grade when you were the new kid in school and you had no friends, and Tommy Richardson came and sat by you, and it changed your world because you became good friends. You didn't feel alone anymore, you felt included, and that brings us to inclusion, which is our second culture value. So being included and feeling that inclusiveness in this culture is so important because we've all felt what it feels like to not belong and not feel welcome, and no one likes that. And so as student leaders, we have this responsibility and this task to do whatever we can, whether it's a small act of sitting by someone or waving hi or smiling or whatever we can, just to make sure that people feel welcome and that they can be who they are in our presence. And so your mind goes back to the current situation and you think, okay, I'll go sit by this person. So you go and sit by them, you strike up a conversation, and you find you have some things in common, and it actually starts a cool friendship.
And so, as you're sitting by this new person in class, your professor gets things started, and you kind of turn around in your seat, you start paying attention to the lecture. And like Lauren was saying, one of the reasons you really like this class is because there's a ton of conversation, and the professor gets one of these discussions started throughout the whole class. And you love it because there's always so many interesting things that people say and add to this conversation. But as this discussion starts to get going, you notice that this kid near the front row starts to raise their hand to add to the discussion. And as the professor calls on them, they start to say something to add to the discussion that's pretty different. And it's not something that is the norm, if you will. Not that being the norm is a good thing or a bad thing or anything, but it's just a little bit different. And you think to yourself, that's very interesting, I've never heard that before. But what you don't like to hear is the whispers that start to go around the classroom, and it's pretty clear that people are laughing at the answer and they aren't really comfortable with some of the things that were said. And so this kind of echoes around in your mind, and you're thinking to yourself, what should I do? Which again, leads right into another one of our culture values, which is such an important culture value, especially in today's world. And that culture value is respect. And respect is so key to every relationship that we have. I think that too often we think that if somebody maybe disagrees with us or if they have a different opinion, that causes tension and it leads us to have this state of disagreement where we don't see eye to eye. When in reality, showing respect to people around us is one of the greatest expressions of love that we can give to each other. And so as you hear these whispers going around the classroom, you raise your hand and the professor calls on you and you actually stand up. You say to the people around you, even to your new friend that you just met, you say, "Thank you so much" to that student. I've never heard that perspective before. And thank you for standing up for what you think. We're always glad to hear new perspectives, and I'm grateful that you said something because it can allow me to share my thoughts at a later point.
Which can be so hard, and that was kind of a hard experience for you to go through. But the class ends, you pack up your stuff, and you're walking out of the lecture hall with your friends and everything, and you're going through, and they start talking about what happened because it was kind of a big thing. And they start bashing on this kid who had the different comment. And they're kind of ripping on it and saying how dumb it was and just kind of, oh, that was so stupid. And your mind is kind of like, what's going on here? And so this brings us to the culture value of being appropriate. So we know that we should be appropriate in how we act and how we speak, but a lot of times we don't think about being appropriate in our thoughts. So when this person rose their hand and was talking and everything, you probably didn't quite agree with them because it was something that you never really heard of and didn't think about. But your thoughts, when you first heard it, you might have thought, oh, that's kind of stupid, but you stood up and spoke out for this person. And so this is with appropriate because our thoughts also need to be appropriate in situations. A lot of times we act and speak how we should, but our thoughts don't kind of match. And so that could be a mindset shift of trying to just remember that it takes a lot of guts sometimes to stand up and be able to share your opinion. And being appropriate in the situation, you decide to talk to your friends and say, hey, this isn't okay. Like, everyone has their own opinions, everyone has their own perspectives, and we need to be okay with how we talk about them, and we need to be okay with hearing different ones. We don't have to agree with it, and that's totally okay, but we need to be appropriate in how we're responding to these situations.
So your day continues, you bid farewell to your friends, they head home, and you head to the next thing on your schedule, which is being a part of a student question and answer panel. A few weeks ago, you were asked by an advisor to help out on this panel because of the leadership position which you hold. And you're really excited for it because who doesn't love a good student panel? You were sent an information sheet with some of the commonly asked or frequently asked questions the night before, but you didn't have time to review it, so you're just rushing off to the panel. You get there, you sit down, you start having a great discussion with some of the first students who start asking you questions. There's you and a few others on this panel. And yeah, just great questions, great answers. But of course, somebody asks you that one question you don't know the answer to because that always happens inevitably. And so you're sitting there and they ask you the question and you think, oh my goodness, should I tell them I don't know and kind of risk looking stupid in front of these people around me? And I want them to trust me. I want them to hold like my thoughts and my knowledge to a high like standard because I should know these things, but I don't know this answer. Or do I kind of make something up to make it sound like I know the answer? Which again brings us to another culture value, which is being knowledgeable. And I think as humans we have this like innate desire to want to be right and to not look foolish in front of other people, which is what you are experiencing right now in this story. But being knowledgeable also includes having the knowledge of when to say I don't know. And in reality, you gain a lot of trust by telling people the honest answer instead of one that makes you look good. And so you, as a student leader, you tell this person you don't know the answer, but you know where to point them to get them the help that they do need. And you say, hey, come talk to me after this panel. I'll get you more information on that. And the student looks very relieved that you know where to get the answer.
So you finish your student panel, and you're just ready to go home. It's been a long day. You've had a lot of classes, lots of things, and you're walking through the student center and you see someone who has a map of the campus in their hand, and you can tell that they're lost, and you think, I know campus. I've been here for a while. I know I should go show them where to go, but it's been a long day. I really need to get home to do all of my homework so that I can go to the basketball game or watch it on TV if that's how it's also being played. But you're just kind of really tired and you're like, I know I should help them because I know I have the resources, but I just really don't want to. So that brings us to our final culture value of humility and being humble. So being humble is really important in spite of our positions. So we're all student leaders, which is an awesome thing, but there's been so much to get us to where we are today. And so we need to remember how we've learned these things to get us here, and to be able to kind of pay that forward with helping others with the knowledge that we have. And so you decide to help this person, you show them where they need to go, and turns out they had a really important scholarship meeting, and so it was really, really good that you decided to do that.
Which kind of wraps up the story that we have prepared for y'all. But the thing that we hope that y'all have taken away from this is that power in leadership is really a misconception. And that as we go through our days, each and every day, we are being watched by people and other students, and there are so many opportunities that we can step in and offer our help to them. We can be of help and of service to anyone around us, whether we're in a leadership position, if you will, like doing a student panel or leading an orientation day, or whether we're just in class, or even if it comes down to something as simple as wearing a mask to class. But yeah, power is a misconception in a leadership role.
It really is. And we hope that throughout this you can see that the different values that we talked about can really make an influential leader. If you have these values, you will influence so many people. But in reality, it's not about the influence that you create. It's about the service that you're able to act and enact in the lives of others. And so we kind of hope that throughout all this that you've learned some things, but also, so what? You've learned all of this great things, but nothing's going to happen if you don't make a decision right now to do something.
Yeah, so there's just like a 2-sentence story I just want to share right here at the end. It's not long, but it's about a turkey, and it says that an enterprising turkey gathered the flock together and, following instructions and demonstrations, taught them how to fly. All afternoon, they enjoyed soaring and flying and the thrill of seeing new vistas. But after the meeting, at the end of the day, all of the turkeys walked home.
So don't walk home. Write something down right now that has to do with one of these values, something that you can start in your life right now to make a mindset shift and change so that you can become a more influential leader.
Because that's really how you'll get inside the mind of an influential leader, is you act like one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello everybody, I'd like to welcome you to my presentation today, Curating Meaningful Moments. I hope that you're able to get something out of this presentation to add to your toolbox as a student in college that can help you be successful. This is something that I'm really passionate about and have found a lot of passion for while I have been at school. So my name is Mariah Law, and I'm a current senior at Utah State University. I'm currently studying elementary and early childhood education. I love tennis and pickleball and baking cakes and golden retrievers, but I really don't like French fries. So that's a little bit about me. I also love student leadership and being involved within our community on campus. So I am a true-blooded Aggie and very proud of that. I'm going to start off by telling you a little bit about the Magic Castle Hotel in Los Angeles, California. This, if you ever look on Google or Yelp, this has been one of the top 3 rated hotels in Los Angeles. It competes with the Four Seasons and other very prestigious hotels in Los Angeles. It's this kind of old, dingy 1950s renovated apartment building. It's painted this kind of nice yellow color, and it's rather sparse on the inside. There aren't a lot of furnishings or anything like that, so it doesn't look like anything that would really catch your attention. But as a guest at the hotel, 2,900 reviews on Yelp and Google Review. Out of those 2,900 reviews, 93% of guests have rated this hotel as either excellent or very good. When you go out to the hotel pool, there's a cherry red phone on the wall that you can pick up, which connects you to the Popsicle hotline. And when you connect to the Popsicle hotline, a staffer will take your Popsicle order. And they'll come out with a silver platter, wearing white gloves, and deliver your Popsicles poolside. There are also magicians that perform at breakfast, and there are also DVD menus, snack menus, and free laundry services available just as other kind of room service things free of charge. So while this isn't necessarily anything that's extraordinary, this 15-minute experience that you have at the Magic Castle Hotel really elevates your experience that you had while in Los Angeles. And this 15-minute meaningful moment that you experienced while at the Magic Castle Hotel really stands out and makes you feel so good about your vacation and your stay at the Magic Castle Hotel. So my purpose with my presentation today is to inform you of these meaningful moments that we all have in our own lives and the elements which contribute to these meaningful moments and how we can incorporate those in our own lives and in the lives of those around us, especially while in a college setting. The information that I took for my presentation comes from the book The Power of Moments: Why Certain Experiences Have Extraordinary Impact. And this book really focuses on how our lives are defined by a few meaningful moments. The authors of this book are Chip and Danny Heath, and they are rather prestigious within their universities at Stanford and Duke. They have done a lot of research in human behavior and have published 2 other books besides this one focusing on human behavior and the impact that it has in our lives. So I have been reading this book and I wanted to bring it, but I forgot it. And it is very insightful. So all of the research, all of the data that I'm taking comes from their book and from their research. I'd like you to think for 30 seconds, and you should be able to access the chat on your Zoom, and think of a meaningful moment that has impacted you and has made you who you are today. So any moment, big or small, please just send it to the chat, and you can also look at the ones that your peers send as well. So I'll give you 30 seconds to go ahead and do that. All right, I hope that you were able to send those experiences to the chat. Maybe by looking at other people's responses as well, you are able to get a feel for these other things that you might have thought, oh yeah, that was a meaningful experience to me as well, because we probably have a lot of them in common. I wanted to share a few of mine with you first. So the first picture is me and my dog. His name is Nog, and I got him when I was 16. It was the happiest day of my whole life. He is awesome. He turned 4 years old and he is just a delight. I love him so much. So that was a very satisfying and happy moment for me. My second experience that I have on there is right before my senior year of high school. My 3 best friends all moved away, pretty close to one another, and that was so hard for me. That was very difficult, and I learned how to bake a lot during that time because I didn't have anybody to hang out with. So that was a more of a negative, meaningful moment in my life, but still powerful and shaping me to who I am today. My third one is my Christmas tree. I love Christmas and all of the memories that come around Christmas time. I start decorating in October. I love it so much. And I love all of the traditions. And so reflecting back on Christmas is something that is very special to me and very dear to my heart. My fourth picture I have on there is my mom, and this is the day that I moved out of the house to come to college. And I'm sure a lot of you can also relate to this. There were tears, but you knew it was a really good thing that you were doing. And my mom actually came up. She stayed with me for 2 weeks while I was moving into college, which is bizarre to look back on, but that meant a lot to me. And that was also a very powerful moment in my life. Like I said earlier, I'm involved in student leadership, and becoming a part of that student leadership organization was really impactful for me to feel a sense of belongingness within my university. So those are a few of my meaningful moments that I have had in my life. So I want to talk a little bit about what exactly a meaningful moment even is. So as you reflect back on your life, you'll notice that you don't average out the minute by minute details. Rather, you remember certain key points of everything that happened to you. And these are going to the pits and the transitions. I want to talk to you a little bit about a peak, and to do this, I'm going to tell you another story. If you at Disneyland or Disney World with your family, and you get every hour in the day, the overall experience, it might go something like this. At 9 o'clock, you're all in the hotel, everybody's really excited, you're trying to get out the door, there's a lot going on, it's pretty hectic. You would rate that as a 6. At 10, you're writing It's a Small World after all, and everybody must be thinking the person to them is having a lot more fun than they are. Rate that as a 5. At 11, you just rode Space Mountain, a lot of going on, and it's exciting time. Everybody wants to go again. You would rate that as a 10. And when you're enjoying the really, really expensive food, your mom had to take it out of her fund to buy it all. It tastes good, but it was a lot of money. You'd rate that as a 7. At 1, you're waiting in line. It's super hot, super humid. There's kids chewing on the handrails. It's not the peak of the day. You would rate that as a 3. And at 2, as your family is leaving the park, you all stop to buy Mickey Mouse ears, and you all look so cute. You take a cute picture, and you would rate that as an 8. If you are to go back and crunch all of these numbers, at the end of the day, you would expect your overall rating of the day to be a 6.5. But if Disney World were to reach out to you a few weeks later to ask you to rate your experience, you would actually rate it as a 9. Because as you reflect back on these experiences that you had while at Disney World, you would remember the 2 peak points of the day, which were riding Space Mountain and getting the Mickey Mouse ears. So as you reflect back, you probably notice that you remember a lot of those peak moments that you had in your life. Pits are often focused on a lot in business. For instance, business try to create a complaint for you. So if your internet's running, your and pits are often called our potholes that we have in our lives. And so they're kind of the little bumps, and when they're not there, we don't notice them. When the road is nice and paved, we don't notice that there's not potholes. We notice when there are potholes though. And so often businesses and other organizations try to really just fill the pits, and that is their main objective. But there have been a lot of studies done that show that if businesses are able to fill their pits and then start to build peaks off of those, they create a better customer experience overall. The last thing is a transition. Transitions are the beginnings and the ends coming together. So for instance, when you have a birthday that's going from one age to another, that would be a transition, or starting a new job are examples of transitions. One quote to write down is to fill your pits, then build peaks. So work on filling in all of those pits and then building peaks off of those. And we play a large role in building those peaks ourselves. There are 4 elements that contribute to these peaks that we want to build. They are elevation, connection, insight, and pride. And I want you to reflect on a peak moment that you have had in your life, something that has been very positively impactful for you. And I want you to reflect on that memory as we go through these next slides to see if these aspects of a meaningful moment fit into that memory that you chose. Often the peak moments that we have contain at least 2 of these elements. Usually the higher the peak, the more elements they contain. So I want you to focus on that. See if at least 2 of these elements are a part of your memory that you chose. So our first one is elevation. And elevation are your sensory experiences that are a part of something. So this involves like how you're feeling during an experience, what is unique about this situation, and what really is taking you out of your everyday. Think of your senses, your touch, your sight, your smell, your hearing. Those kind of things are really elevated during a peak experience. So think about, reflect on your experience that you chose, and think about if your senses were elevated in any way during this time. Our next one is connection. Often during a meaningful moment, there are levels of connection that are heightened. So often there are people that are important to you that are around you during a meaningful moment. An example of this could be a wedding, and even a funeral is an example of this. People are often coming closer together in some way. The third one that we have is insight. And in a meaningful moment, often something is becoming more clear. Is of these. I shocked I heard that, but thinking back on it and reflecting on it, often when we're in a peak moment, it's somewhere where we are performing at our best or having to show a lot of courage. And this is very memorable to us that we performed at our best or we used a lot of courage. And it even makes it more meaningful if somebody else watched it. So I know none of you are prideful people, but maybe you felt pretty good when somebody noticed your peak moment. Why is this so interesting to talk about in a college setting? As there's a study done with older folks who asked on their college and 40% they remember college. So many firsts and so many experiences that they had during those first 6 weeks that they had so many peak moments during that time. Most of the memories and these peak moments that you have happen between the ages of 15 and 30. And that's because we are experiencing a lot of firsts. And so really, this is the time of our life when we have the ability to be creating these moments in our own lives. My last part of this is I want to talk to you about Eugene O'Kelly, who really emphasized the idea of creating peak moments. So Eugene O'Kelly is a former CEO of KPMG, which is one of the big 4 accounting firms. When he was 53 years old, he was diagnosed with 3 golf ball-sized tumors and told that he had 3 months left to live. He decided that he was going to spend these last 3 months of his life creating as many meaningful moments as he possibly could. If you have a piece of paper, I would love for you to draw out this little graph that you see on the screen. So in the center circle, you have closest. In the middle circle, you have friends. And on the outer circle, you have acquaintances. So if you can go ahead, I'll give you just a second to draw that out. Eugene O'Kelly did this same exact thing, and he filled it in with the people that were closest to him, his friends, and his acquaintances. So if you can go ahead and fill in those circles with a couple of people that are closest to you, your friends, and your acquaintances, that would be great. All right, I hope you're able to get some people in there. Eugene O'Kelly started with his outermost circle, his acquaintances, and with them he would send a phone call or an email and talk with them about all the memories that they had had together. With his friends, they would go on a drive, they would go for a walk in Central Park, or go to a nice restaurant and share a meal together. As his time drew closer to an end, he spent more and more time with the people that were closest to him, his family and close friends. And he talked about how he had created more perfect moments in the last 3 months of his life than he had in the last 5 years of his life. And so I want to end today by encouraging you to notice the pits that you have in your own life, fill those, and then work on creating the peaks that can be so instrumental in building who you are in the future. So like Eugene O'Kelly wrote letters and sent emails to those around him, my challenge to you is to write a letter to somebody on your circles that you chose to maybe spark a meaningful moment for you or for them. Thank you.
Hey everyone, welcome to my breakout room. I'm Ammon, and just glad to be with all of you today. Mostly I'm just glad to have my mask off. I had some pretty bad onion breath from lunch, so glad to finally be able to breathe freely. My presentation today is called The Teenage Warrior, and very simply put, I want to focus on the lessons in leadership that I learned from growing up in a multicultural home. So let's go on a little journey. Just as a matter of introduction, basically the reason I created this presentation is because of my experience as an Asian American adolescent. Adolescence is a difficult time for all teenagers, right? Let's not get it twisted. Every teenager has it hard, and life is not easy trying to figure things out when you're a teenager. But especially Asian American adolescence is a difficult time because you add this element of acculturation. How do you balance two different cultures while also trying to figure out who you are as a teenager? For Asian Americans, they have to reconcile their mother culture with the dominant culture and figure out how they align with those things. I wanted to introduce my family a little bit. On the left side of your screen is my dad's side of the family. So my dad is a white American. And this is a picture of us with my great-grandma. So this is great-grandma Cobabe. How old? I can't remember how old I was in this picture. I think like 15 or 16. But on the right side of your screen, I have my mom's side of the family. So this is my Korean side of the family. And there's my cousin, my mom, of course. And then on the far right is my grandma. We call her Harmony, which means grandma in Korean. Growing up, my sister and I had the opportunity to partake in both sides of our culture. And here you can see a picture of me on the left in a ceremonial outfit called hanbok. And on the right, my sister is wearing her hanbok, and this is actually at her high school graduation. Kind of a ceremony of sorts, like a rite of passage in American culture. So, and there's me, of course, standing next to her, just as proud as can be, right? So before we talk about, go any further, I think it's important to talk about what is culture, right? What is the definition of culture? And how do we recognize what aspects of culture we have in ourselves? The first kind of culture is probably what you're more familiar with, is called surface culture. So those are things like song, dance, traditions, celebrations, holidays, clothing, and my personal favorite, food, right? For me, that means Korean food, American food, Thanksgiving, cheeseburgers on the 4th of July, right? All of those things make up surface culture. Other things as well, including things like the Super Bowl, right? Christmas traditions, wearing a hanbok. When we talk about deep culture, which is the other side of culture, what we mean is things like self-concept, attitudes and social interactions, ideas about religion and family. For me, the aspects of my deep culture are things like ancestor veneration, respect for my elders, things like honor and shame, the importance of having a close-knit family and gatherings, food, right? How not just eating food and what kind of food, but how food gathers people together, brings us together. Even things like religion and even superstitions, right? Those are all things that I've inherited from my deep culture. So I want to do a lot of activity. I know that we have some constraints because we're online, but I would love to take a couple of minutes, give all of you a couple of minutes to think about your surface culture and your deep culture. And before that, I want to say that with a couple disclaimers. I do recognize that a lot of people might feel like, well, what is my culture? Do I have culture? I got permission from my wife to share this, but she said that something that is part of her surface culture is a food that her family always gets together and eat, a dessert called red mush. It's a rhubarb dessert with tapioca, and you put, I think, half and half or cream inside, mixed it together, and it's kind of a sour, sweet dish. It's definitely an acquired taste, but my wife told me that I could share that because as a white American, she wanted to demonstrate that she was able to find something as part of her culture as well. Surface culture, again, we're talking about things like food, different holidays you have, celebrations. And deep culture, things like social interaction, self-concept, attitudes and beliefs, values, morals, what's important to you. So I want to give all of you a few minutes to kind of reflect individually and to consider those things, right? What are a few things that are part of your surface culture? And what are a few things that are part of your deep culture? So take a couple of minutes, and if you'd like, you can put them in the chat. I have no way to read the chat, but you can put them in the chat for posterity's sake. So take a few minutes and think about those things. What is my surface culture and what is my deep culture? I'll give you that time right now. What do you like to do when you're with your family? When you get together, what are some traditions that you have? Or what makes you who you are? When you make decisions, your upbringing, how did your parents raise you? Okay. Now that you've had a few moments to think about those things, I want to challenge you to continue to think about those, right? Think about the aspects of your life that come from surface culture and deep culture, because they're there. Everyone has them, and it's an awesome opportunity to explore, to realize those things about yourself. So how does our culture help us? Why does it matter? Who cares, right? Well, where we have been, in other words, our culture, our upbringing, where we have been brings us to where we are today. And where we are today and what we decide today can take us to where we want to go. But these two forces, these two ideas of who we want to become and what has made us who we are today seem to kind of pull in opposite directions. Do we decide to live in the past, for example, and refuse to move on? Do we accept our upbringing and decide to live there? Do we decide to only live in the future and continue to dream and reject the past and forget the past? These two ideas and these two questions seem to pull us in opposite directions. And we're stuck in the middle, asking ourselves, who am I? Who am I today? I want to share a little story about myself and about how my journey with this question. Growing up, I know it sounds a little silly, but growing up, I wanted to be white. I wanted to have a white name. I wanted to look white. I wanted to have brown hair or blonde hair. I wanted to have blue eyes. I wanted to look like everyone else in my class. I wanted a normal name, right? like John or Mark or something like that that didn't stand out all the time. I wanted to have normal looking eyes that weren't squinty, or I wanted to have a pointier nose that wasn't so flat. I wanted to be American and to have all of those things that make up being an American. But at the same time, I felt embarrassed because I knew that I should be proud of the fact that I'm Korean. I knew that I needed to recognize that I am Korean and own that. I felt a lot of embarrassment, a lot of shame for not accepting that. In fact, that literally manifested itself. My mom started out trying to teach us Korean growing up, and eventually we just kind of stopped. And we just decided that English was the language that we were going to speak at home. In fact, I would also say that in many ways my mom was kind of a manifestation of this Korean side of me and my family. And I rejected that. Growing up, I didn't get along with my mom. And she's shown here in the bottom left picture. I didn't get along with my mom a lot growing up. Mostly because I think I was kind of a punk teenager. I was kind of a rowdy kid. I mean, not too rowdy. I still did my homework every once in a while. But I disregarded a lot of the things that she wanted for me and that she desired for me. And I'll never forget, this one night we got into an argument, and I looked her in the face, in the eyes, and I told her, "Mom, it's okay if we don't get along. It's okay if we're not friends. It's okay if you're just my mom. You're just the person who takes care of me. We can live the rest of our lives, and that can be our relationship, and that's fine with me." And I made her cry. I made a decision to serve a mission for the Mormon Church. I went to the Philippines for 2 years. And on my mission, I struggled a lot. I had a really hard time. One of the most challenging things about my mission was learning a new language. And in that moment, when I struggled, when I couldn't understand what anyone was saying, and I felt hopeless, I remembered my mom. I remembered her courage, how she traveled across the ocean just to go to school, to go to a land where she had never been before, to speak a language that she didn't understand. She told me she took a tape recorder to her college classes to record the lectures and played them back over and over and over again just to try to understand one class. And I learned, albeit the hard way, I learned to empathize with my mom. I understood her for once. I understood where she's coming from and why she wanted the things that she did for me. Now, I feel a little bit ashamed to say I wish I could have learned that before having to travel thousands of miles away and to learn a completely different language. I wish I could have learned that the easy way, but some things in life only come that way, I think. So I came home and I apologized. I told her how much I loved her. And through that, I started gaining greater appreciation for my own culture. I started to pay attention more to things that were Korean and about me, and started to own those and be proud of those things. And I realized that at the end of the day, my mom just wanted me to be successful. She wanted me to be happy. She wanted me to do anything that I wanted in life. So I did. This bottom middle picture, this is my wife and I, Abigail. I did exactly what I wanted to do, and I married the woman of my dreams. And on that day, I had the opportunity to dance with my mom. And in this moment when we were together, I just felt gratitude for her and for her culture, for making me who I was. I realized then that she didn't want me to have her life. She wasn't trying to impose her decisions on me. She wanted me to be happy. She wanted me to feel her love. The answer to this struggle that pulls us these different directions of where we're supposed to go and where we've come from, the reality is that both of those things make up who we are today. They equally influence every decision we make, every single day. They can coexist, and that's what we talk about when we're talking about acculturation. This is where I landed as an Asian American adolescent. I realized that who I wanted to be and where I came from both combined to make up who I am. Instead of asking, who am I was able to receive the answer of who I was. No matter your race, your political belief, your background, your religion, your creed, sexual orientation, or gender, everyone has to face this moment of where you come from and where you want to go. Everyone. So what does this mean for leadership? What's the big tie-in here, right? Well, once we understand that each person is accumulation of where they come from and where they want to go, we can apply that same mentality to others. As a leader, that involves leading other people who might be different than you, people who might believe different things from you, have different politics than you, people who might hold different things sacred than you. Being a leader means understanding other people, and not just who they are today, but why they are where they are today, where they come from, what their culture is. And by understanding other people's culture, we're able to empathize with them, right? We're able to understand who they are today better and lead them better today, right? This picture on the left is a photo of my wife and I at the Black Lives Matter protests in Provo this last summer 2020, following the death of George Floyd. And frankly put, this was a direct result of this principle that we're talking about today. By understanding Black American culture and the generational and systemic racism that exists, that they've had to deal with and they've had to put up with. By understanding that aspect that's part of their culture, for better or for worse. By understanding that, we're able to empathize, and we knew that we had to act. We knew that we had to stand up for the others. So I want to ask all of you, now that you understand where you're at, things that make up who you are, how can you apply this to others in your life? No matter where you're at, no matter what position you're at in life, how can you apply this to the leadership positions that you're in? How can we learn to empathize with others by understanding their culture first? For further study, I highly recommend reading Maxine Hong Kingston's The Woman Warrior. It's an incredible book. This is the kind of the book that set off this whole journey for me in self-discovery and understanding how to balance the two different sides of my culture. I encourage all of you to share your story online, right? Share it on social media. Be proud of it. Own your culture. Own what makes you you. Practice introspection and self-awareness, right? Look inside of yourself. As you're making decisions, think about, why am I making this decision? You know, what about my culture has led me to this moment right now? And document your findings. Write your comments, write your ideas in a blog, in a journal for posterity. Because there will be those that follow you, and they deserve to know what made you you. And lastly, I want to finish with, I guess, I don't know if this is a mantra or a motto, but something that I've kind of generated that's guided me in my life and has kind of come out of this whole journey. And this is the quote or the saying, leave behind a legacy that will become a destiny to others. I promise you, you have infinite and an awesome opportunity to leave behind a legacy for those that will follow after you. You have an incredible opportunity to do that. And that's an opportunity that shouldn't be taken lightly. What decisions will you make that can influence those that will follow after you? What are you leaving behind? Everyone, thank you for coming and thank you for listening to my presentation. Again, my name is Ammon, and feel free to contact me through social media or through any means that you'd like to ask more questions if you have any about this topic, or to let me know what you thought about the presentation. Thank you.